If you have ever felt like things are maybe just not quite clicking in your business and thinking maybe you should invest in branding, but you're not exactly sure what that even is, or if you need it, then today's episode is for you. I am diving into what is branding, why it matters, and when to know whether or not it's time to invest in branding support for your business. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. So in my branding agency, we get people coming to us frequently with all sorts of interesting ideas about what is branding, what isn't branding, whether or not it's going to actually move the needle for them, all of that kind of stuff. And there's just a lot of confusion and differing opinions floating around the internet about all those things. So today I want to clear that up for you. I want to start with my favorite quote about branding. I came across this several years ago, and I've yet to find one that I think summarizes what branding is better. So this is by Seth Godin. Highly recommend picking up his books if you get the opportunity. It says, a brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. I want you to notice that he does not say in there, a brand is your logo, or a brand is your color palette, or a brand is your brand values. I think that that's what a lot of us think of when we think of branding. We think of the Nike swoosh or the McDonald's arches or the Apple. And there's so much more to it than that. So at Spect & Co, we use the Standout brand system, which is my signature system that I've crafted over the last decade that I've been doing this, that breaks branding down into three kind of parts or phases. So first we have strategy, then we move into design, and then experience. So I'm going to break down what each of those entail next. So first is strategy. This is going to be really the foundation for everything else we do with your brand. I like to refer to it as the who, what, why, and how. So I have this little iceberg graphic that I use with clients, and the foundation is the big, huge piece of the iceberg that's under the water that we don't get to see. And then we'll get into what's above the water here in a second. So within strategy, we have your purpose, which is pretty straightforward. It's your why, right? We hear that all the time in the online business world. Why are you in business? Obviously, we are all in business to make money. If you're not, then you just have an expensive hobby, not a business. But really at your core, why are you so passionate about doing what you do? Next, we've got your vision. So this is your long-term goals, where you see your business going in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. Next, we have your mission. So this is a little bit more granular. For example, if you were a health coach who focuses on PCOS, right? You could say my mission is to help women heal their PCOS through natural remedies. And then finally, we have values. These are my most favorite part of brand strategy because I get super nerdy about them. But basically, values are, what do you really care about in your business? How do you operate? What are some of your non-negotiables? I like to ask people to dig really deep for these. So frequently you'll see people say, we value kindness and honesty, right? Which is great. I think most of us value those things, but what does that mean in the context of your business? So to give you an example from Spect & Co, one of our core values is education and empowerment. And how we embody that is that at the end of every project, we do a pretty in-depth training session with the client so they learn how to use their brand and feel confident moving forward. We also bonus them either a month or a quarter in our membership to the Six Figure Brand Society to kind of give them some ongoing support as they get used to using their new brand. And then we also set them up with Canva templates and some resources to really help them feel, like my brand value says, empowered to move forward and use their new brand to continue growing their business. So all of that stuff needs to be nailed down before we dive into your brand identity or your visuals, which is for sure the more sexy part of branding that everyone gets really excited about. And people always want to jump right there and skip the strategy piece. And as your brand strategist / designer, I am constantly reminding people, no, we need to do the foundational strategy work first. By the end of the project, everyone is always so glad that we did that because they're able to finally see what a big difference that made. So your brand identity is going to include your logo, obviously, your brand fonts, your brand colors, any like image styles that you use for your brand. So for example, if your photos are typically like dark and moody, or if they're black and white, or if they're like brighter and more colorful, or if they're kind of like whitewashed, that kind of a thing. Typically, you might also have like a set of brand icons that are unique to your brand, maybe some patterns or like other graphics that you use frequently. So this is going to be pretty straightforward, anything visual, right? The important part here is that we need to base these on your brand strategy that we've already worked through rather than just what do you like personally. So this is where we get really into color psychology. There's some strategy behind fonts to use, logo design, all that stuff. I think where people get really hung up is it's difficult to find the balance between designing a brand that looks and feels authentic to you and that is also right for who your ideal client is. So that's where it's really important that if we do the strategy piece right, it makes that significantly easier. And then lastly, so this would be phase 3 of the standout brand system, we have brand experience. So this is how your brand looks and feels when someone interacts with it. So as you might guess, this relies heavily on your brand strategy and also on having a well done and comprehensive visual identity. So this is going to include everything from your online presence, so website, social media. I guess that's pretty much it for online. So this is going to include everything from your online presence, so website, social media, etc., to your messaging, so any emails that you send, content you're putting out on the internet, personal interactions that you have with people, whether that be on a Zoom call or in real life. Basically, anytime that someone interacts with your brand, how does it feel for them? So again, this really needs to be based on your strategy. So back to that values point that I made, if one of your values is we really value approaching this difficult thing with humor, and then someone gets on a call with you and they try to crack a joke and you have a bad reaction, then your brand experience isn't really in alignment with your brand strategy. Another example would be if, let's say, one of your values is integrity and transparency, right? And then someone comes to you and you're the financial planner and they say, hey, I would love to know how you got to this answer on what I should do for my finances moving forward for like planning for the future. And you say to them, oh, we don't actually share that with clients. That's another place where your brand experience is a big disconnect from what you are trying to say that your brand strategy is. And then at a more like granular level, this is also where we want to be making sure that, you know, our website matches our social media, which matches our email signature, which matches any like thank you cards that we're going to mail out to people, or our business card or what have you. So visually, everything is feeling really cohesive and polished and professional. So to recap, we have strategy. So that's going to be the who, what, why, and how of your brand. Then we build that into your visual identity. So that's how your brand looks when it's out in the world. And then finally, your brand experience. So what it feels like when someone is actually interacting and working with your brand. All of these things, as you can tell, really build upon each other. So it's super important that we don't skip a step or cut corners or say, oh, I don't really need to do that, or I did this 3 years ago whenever I was working with somebody else. I would highly recommend that you go through this process in some fashion, at least every couple of years with your business. You don't necessarily have to revamp your entire brand identity, but it's a good practice to make sure that we're still on the right path and things haven't shifted, because your business, like you, grows and evolves and things change, and something that was maybe really important to you 5 years ago might not matter now, or you might have a different opinion on it now, or what have you. And I don't want you to get 10 years down the road and realize I made this misstep with my brand strategy a long time ago and now it's affected everything in my business. Okay, so we have covered what is branding. Now I want to get into this why does it matter piece. Several weeks ago, I had a post kind of blow up on Threads where I was asking, if you are a service provider who is not a branding expert, what difference does it make to you when your clients have or have not done this type of branding work that I'm talking about? And I want to read you some of the answers because they were pretty enlightening. So one person was an e-commerce consultant. She said, and these are direct quotes, She said, it's definitely a lot of work to map out a story when you don't have a solid brand strategy. A friend of mine who's an email marketer said, brands that don't have an established brand make it harder to develop automation plans and campaign sends. Instead of focusing on controlled elements to test, it becomes more about figuring out those missing pieces first, which isn't as efficient. A gal who's a copywriter said, it's way easier to write conversion copy if there's some kind of foundation to start from. Someone who is a client experience architect, which, side note, sounds like a really cool job, said, brand strategy is so important to my work because so much of creating a client experience involves knowing your ideal client extremely well and being really clear on your brand values so that we can ensure the experience reflects them. Having solid visuals that I can implement makes both the brand experience and the client experience stronger because there's cohesion between the outward and inward experiences, and the visuals align with the ideal client who we're creating the experience for. I thought that was really well written and a great answer. A business coach responded and said, if I'm working with someone who doesn't have a brand, they typically also have not thought about who they truly are serving and why. It's very hard to help someone with any strategies if that foundational element isn't there. And then lastly, we have a Pinterest strategist who said, having at least some visual branding to guide our graphics is helpful, but the strategy is often the most important. It helps if we're not constantly switching up messaging or offers or target audience. So the common thread in all of those was basically it saves a ton of time and it helps me do my job way better and faster if the client has already done that foundational brand work. So I get asked semi-often, when should I invest in branding, right? Whenever, especially if you're newer to business, but anytime, there's so many people you want to hire and things that you want to spend money on. So you're like, do I hire a coach or do I hire a bookkeeper or do I pay an attorney to write contracts for me or do I invest in branding? Like, where does it fall in there? And I'm going to do a whole episode on what order I think it makes sense to make investments in your business. But I think you do yourself a big favor by investing in branding, particularly the strategy piece, but of course, also the visuals, before you start bringing a bunch of other contractors into your business to do things like copywriting and Pinterest and email marketing and SEO even. If you have that brand foundation, like all of these people are saying, you're going to save them so much time and they're going to be able to serve you so much better than if you go to them and you're like, I don't really know who my ideal client is and I'm not really sure what my brand values are, because then they're going to end up having to kind of do some of that brand strategy work for you or with you. And that's not what they're an expert in. So I just want to recap with kind of 4 ways that having a rock solid brand foundation helps you in business. So first, and this is kind of the most tangible one, I think, it makes content creation a lot easier. And I don't just mean like posting on Instagram. I mean any type of content creation, whether that's social media or blogging or even if you write like ebooks or something. Makes it so much easier because you know your ideal client inside and out. You know your brand values and your messaging, and you know how things should look visually. So you're not sitting there being like, I don't know what to post and I don't know what colors to pick in Canva. When you're at a stage in business where you really are the expert and you're trying to grow your business, you don't want to be wasting time with those things. Next, and this is something that every client who comes through Spect & Co says at the end of our time together, it makes your business look more, quote, legit, but more importantly, it makes you feel more legit, which is going to help you show up with more confidence, put yourself out there more, be more willing to take advantage of opportunities because you're not embarrassed about how things look and you're not feeling that disconnect that we talked about. Third, it helps ensure that everything that you create is speaking to the right audience, right? So I did some market research like a year and a half ago, trying to figure out what type of things are people who need to work on their branding saying. And across the board, they all said, I don't know if what I'm creating is reaching the right people. And so that is where that ideal client work and figuring out like what your goals are and what your brand values are and that kind of stuff really makes a huge difference, because then you don't have to wonder if your message is resonating with the right people. And then lastly, it makes you more memorable. So at the beginning of this, I mentioned the Nike swoosh and the Apple. Those are obviously huge brands that have been around for a long time, and they've had lots of money to spend and decades to build that brand recognition, but you can do that too. So having a really solid brand strategy where people know who you are and what you stand for and who your like ideal client is, And then also visually, that they can think of you immediately in their mind, or when they see a piece of content you posted, they automatically know that it's yours. Helps with, like I said, brand recognition. It helps people to be able to refer clients to you. It helps whenever they're like, oh, you know what? I really want to hire a copywriter, and you're the first person that comes to mind for them, which is what we want. If you do not have this brand foundation that we're talking about, you are going to run into some issues. So first, you're going to probably be attracting the wrong type of clients, or not any clients. Potentially, hopefully that's not the case. And you will know that they're the wrong clients because you're going to get a lot of pricing objections, or you'll just feel like the vibe is off. You'll get on a call with them and you'll be like, this is not really who I want to be working with, or they will be looking for services that are like not quite what you provide. Secondly, again, you're going to have that I don't know what to post syndrome, right? You're going to struggle to create content because you don't know how it should look, what it should say, etc. And then finally, you just generally don't feel very confident in promoting your business. So I kind of touched on this a minute ago, but if you find yourself hiding and playing small and not wanting to go to networking events and not wanting to share your website, that is probably a good sign, along with these other two that I just mentioned, that maybe you should consider investing in branding. So if this has gotten your wheels turning and some of these pain points are hitting a little closer to home than you would like, I would love to give you some feedback on your brand and point you in the right direction. You can head to spectan.co/5-minute audit, and the link will be in the show notes also, and grab your free 5-minute brand audit, where I will review your brand, website, and social platforms and send you back a Loom video with my thoughts on what's working, where you can make some improvements, and whether or not a rebrand could make sense for you. And as you know, we are wrapping up every episode with a little personal shout out. So this episode, I want to shout out my friend Jess. She is actually the email marketing person that I mentioned earlier, who had that great quote about why branding matters. She is an email and text messaging marketing strategist who recently took the leap of going full-time in her business. Congratulations, Jess. She also has worked with me as a subcontractor on and off, and then went through a coaching program that I ran several years ago. So we've been in each other's worlds for a while. I'm just super proud of her finally taking this leap of faith and believing in herself, and I'm so excited to see where her new journey in business takes her. So if you are curious about email and SMS marketing and you want to connect, I will drop Jess's Instagram link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.